In today's nurse workbook lesson, we are going to be talking about endotracheal tubes, also known as an ET tube. This is what we hook up to the ventilator to help maintain adequate carbon dioxide and oxygen levels. So first we have our cuff. This is the balloon we blow up to make sure that the tube doesn't come out of the patient's mouth. This black line is our vocal cord guide. This needs to go 5 to 6 centimeters below the vocal cords when it's being placed so we know it can be in the right spot, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Then we have this little yellow tube known as our above the cuff suction port. The mouth can definitely have saliva, secretions, blood. So we want to be able to suction that mouth throat area out. So you can hook this little end up to suction, but it cannot be continuous. This must be an intermittent thing. Not all ET tubes actually have this feature, but it's something that's really great instead of using a yank hour. Then we have our pilot balloon. This is what we use to blow up the cuff to make sure it stays in the mouth. And of course the connector, this is what's gonna have capno attached to it, our ventilator attached to it with the inline suction and all that stuff. So it's the end of the tube. Then we are gonna have our placement marker. So this is where we measure where the tube is at the teeth or the lip. And so we know with this little radio opaque line that comes down the tube, when we take an x-ray, how far we need to come up or down in the tube so it's in the right placement and not in the esophagus. So tube size is extremely important so we can actually get adequate airway perfusion with this tube. So the inner diameter is how we measure it. It's either a 7.5 or an 8. Typically in larger people, we can have it from an 8 to a 9. Also, of course, in pediatrics, this diameter is going to be much smaller. So the bigger the number, the bigger the tube. So we want to make sure when it's placed that it's actually sitting inside our trachea. It's not in one of our main stems in this bronchi, left or right. We have it beautifully placed in the trachea. And how we actually do that can be one simple little tool before x-ray. We can use this disposable detector. We're gonna see this normally purple little paper that's in the middle, and this means it's exposed to room air. And then when it's attached to the tube and we're in the right spot, that CO2 is going to trigger this to flip to a yellow piece of paper. So if we were in the esophagus, we wouldn't see that yellow piece of paper flip because CO2 isn't living in our esophagus. So this is one way to make sure we're in the right spot, other than the fact that we will always need an x-ray to make sure it's truly in the best possible place.